The iron shackles bit into her wrists, drawing fresh blood that dripped onto the auction platform. Ayanna stood perfectly still, her dark eyes burning with defiance as men shouted numbers like she was livestock. $50! Bellowed a fat merchant, his grin showing tobacco-stained teeth. She spat at his feet. I'd rather die. The crowd erupted in laughter. Bids dropped. $40, $30, $20 in the back. Lucas Brennan's hand trembled over his last 3 coins. The woman's face blurred, and suddenly he saw his daughter, 8 years old. Blonde hair matted with blood, eyes vacant. His arm raised before his mind caught up. $3. Silence crashed over the square like a thunderclap. Men turned, gaping. The auctioneer hesitated, then shrugged. Sold? Ayanna's hatred locked onto Lucas like a rifle sight. She leaned forward, chains rattling. I'd rather die than belong to you, white man. Lucas met her gaze, his voice barely a whisper. Then you'll get your wish, ma'am. You're free. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from. Now, let's continue with the story. Lucas Brennan had been a dead man walking for 6 years. At 42, his face carried lines too deep for his age, carved by grief that wouldn't wash away no matter how many rivers he crossed. His hands, once steady enough to fell a tree with precision, now trembled whenever he saw a little girl with blonde hair. The mountains knew his story, even if people didn't. He'd told them he killed his daughter in a hunting accident, a lie that sat on his tongue like poison. The truth lived in a leather pouch against his chest. A suicide note written in his wife's shaking hand. Emily had been drunk that morning. Sarah's 8th birthday. They'd argued about the bottle hidden under the sink, about the promises broken too many times to count. When Sarah ran outside, Emily grabbed Lucas's rifle. She thought it was unloaded. The crack of gunfire still echoed in Lucas's nightmares. He found his daughter in the tall grass, blue eyes staring at nothing, a hole in her chest where her heart should be. Emily stood frozen, the rifle shaking in her hands. "Tell them it was you," she'd whispered. "Please, Lucas, tell them it was you." So he had, took the blame, faced the sheriff, carried the shame. 3 weeks later, Emily walked into the river with stones in her pockets. The note she left confessed everything, begged forgiveness, asked him to tell Sarah she was sorry. But Sarah was already gone, buried in a closed casket because Lucas couldn't bear to look at what the bullet had done. He'd sold everything after that, the house, the furniture, his tools, even his wedding ring last month, which gave him exactly $3. He'd come to Fort Verde to die alone in the mountains, maybe let his failing heart finally give out in peace. The doctor had been clear 8 months ago, 6 months to live, maybe less. His heart was worn out, damaged by years of grief that squeezed his chest like a vice. Lucas had outlived the prediction, but every morning he woke surprised to see another dawn. Then he'd seen the auction, seen the Apache woman with fury in her eyes and blood on her wrists, seen her spit at men who treated her like property. And when she'd said those words, "I'd rather die," something in Lucas recognized a kindred spirit. He didn't know why he bid his last $3, didn't know what possessed him to speak when he'd planned to die silent. But when her eyes met his, he saw Sarah's defiance, Sarah's strength, Sarah's refusal to break. Maybe God was giving him one last chance to save a daughter, even if she wasn't his. The cabin sat 5 miles outside Fort Verde, tucked against red rock cliffs where pine trees grew sparse and stubborn. Lucas led Ayanna there in silence, her chains clinking with each step. She studied everything, the angle of the sun, the path they took, the knife on his belt, planning either escape or murder. He figured maybe both, inside. The cabin held almost nothing. A table, 2 chairs, a bedroll in the corner. The poverty of a man who'd stopped caring whether he lived or died. Lucas pulled a key from his pocket and reached for her shackles. She jerked away, eyes wild. "Easy now," he said quietly. "Just taking these off. Why? Because you're free to go." The iron fell away from her wrists. She stood perfectly still, testing whether this was trap or truth. Blood had dried in dark lines down her forearms. Lucas gestured to the water bucket and a clean cloth on the table. "There's food in that sack. Horse outside is old, but she'll carry you. Go wherever you want." Ayanna didn't move. Her hand drifted toward the hunting knife on the table. Fingers wrapping around the handle in one fluid motion, she lunged, pressing the blade against Lucas's throat. He didn't flinch, didn't raise his hands, just closed his eyes and waited. "What kind of trick is this?" she hissed. "No trick. White men don't free Indians. They own or they kill. Then kill me. Go ahead." The blade pressed harder, drawing a thin line of blood. "Why did you buy me?" Lucas opened his eyes, saw my daughter in your eyes, the way you'd rather die than be owned. She was like that too, strong, brave. Where is she now? The words came out broken. 6 years ago, I killed her." Something in his voice made Ayanna hesitate. She saw the truth in his face, not the truth of his words, but the truth of his pain. She'd seen enough liars to know what real grief looked like. She lowered the knife slowly. "How? Doesn't matter. She's gone." Ayanna stepped back, still gripping the weapon. The silence stretched between them like a rope pulled too tight. Night fell. Lucas built a fire. She watched from across the room, deciding whether to run or stay. Finally, she spoke. "I have 14 children. They will die in 3 days." Lucas looked up sharply. "I left them in caves. Black Mesa. 5 days south, through the Sonoran Desert." Her voice cracked. "I left them 7 days ago. Promised to return in 10. But then the soldiers came, captured me, brought me to your auction." "Why were you away from them? Looking for food, water, medicine. 2 of them are blind. 3 are sick. All are starving." When she met his eyes, "I told myself I would escape, return to them. But even if I run now, I cannot make 5 days in 3. Not alone. Not on foot, through desert." Lucas did the calculation. 5 days there if they pushed hard. His heart probably wouldn't last that long. The doctor had been clear that any strain could kill him. But then, he'd been waiting to die anyway. He looked at the horse through the window. Grace, named after his daughter's middle name, Sarah Grace. The mare was 20 years old, too worn for that kind of journey. "These 14 children," he said, "they depending on you." "Yes, and you'd rather die free than live, knowing you failed them." Ayanna's jaw tightened. "Yes." Lucas nodded slowly. He walked to his pack and pulled out a worn photograph. Sarah, age 8, holding a doll, the last picture taken before she died. He stared at it for a long moment, then held it out to Ayanna. "That's my Sarah. She'd be 14 now if she'd lived." His voice was barely a whisper. "Maybe God's giving me 14 chances to get it right this time." Ayanna looked at the photograph, then at Lucas. Understanding passed between them, two people who'd lost everything, being offered one last purpose. "We ride at dawn," Lucas said. "Why would you help me?" "You don't know me. You don't know these children." Lucas tucked the photograph back in his pocket, right next to Emily's note, "because $3 is all I got left in this world, and you deserve better than being owned, and because maybe, just maybe, saving 14 kids I never met will mean something when I stand before my daughter again." Ayanna's eyes glistened. "You are dying." "We're all dying, ma'am. Question is what we do with the time we got left." She extended her hand. "I am Ayanna. It means eternal blossom." He shook it. "Lucas Brennan means light bringer, though I ain't brought much light to anyone in a long time." "Then perhaps we bring it together." "Perhaps we do." Dawn broke cold and clear over the Arizona territory. Lucas packed light his rifle, 6 bullets wrapped in oilcloth, 1 canteen, and what little dried meat remained in his stores. He watched Ayanna count the bullets, her expression darkening. 6 bullets for a 5-day journey through hostile territory. "It's all I got. Have to make them count." She said nothing, but her eyes told him what they both knew. 6 bullets wouldn't be enough if they ran into trouble. 1 Apache woman and 1 dying white man wouldn't inspire mercy from anyone they might encounter. They mounted Grace together, the old mare grunting under the double weight. Lucas felt the horse's reluctance in every step. 20 years old was ancient for a horse, especially one being asked to carry 2 people across 100 miles of desert. 10 miles south of Fort Verde, Grace stumbled. Lucas felt it before he heard the crack, the way her front leg buckled, the way she tried to catch herself and couldn't. They dismounted quickly, but the damage was done. The mare's leg hung at an unnatural angle. She nickered softly, looking at Lucas with eyes that understood. "No," he whispered, kneeling beside her. "Not you too, girl." Ayanna examined the break. "The bone is shattered. She will not heal." Lucas already knew. He'd known the moment Grace fell. His hands shook as he loaded the rifle bullet number 1. He pressed his forehead against Grace's neck, feeling her warmth, her trust, named her after my daughter's middle name, he said, voice breaking. "Sarah, Grace, last piece of my girl I had left." He stood, raised the rifle, and fired. The shot echoed across the empty landscape. Grace fell without a sound. Lucas stood there, rifle hanging loose in his hands, staring at nothing. Ayanna touched his shoulder gently. "We should take what we can carry and walk. It's 115 miles. We'll never make it on foot. Then we died trying." Something in her voice, the absolute certainty, pulled him back from the edge of grief. He nodded, wiped his eyes, and began stripping supplies from Grace's saddlebags. By afternoon, the temperature had climbed to 108 degrees. There was no shade, no relief, just endless scrubland and distant mesas shimmering in the heat. Lucas's chest had started to hurt around noon, a deep, squeezing pain that radiated down his left arm. He tried to hide it, kept walking, kept breathing steady, But Ayanna noticed everything. She grabbed his wrist, feeling his pulse. "Your heart. How long do you have?" "I'm fine. Do not lie to me." "How long?" Lucas pulled his arm away. "Doctor said 6 months. That was 8 months ago. Every day since is borrowed time. You are dying, yet and you choose to walk through the desert for children you have never met." "I am dying anyway. Might as well die for something that matters." Ida stopped walking. "I cannot let you die for my children. Not your choice to make, ma'am. You saved me. Now I must save you." We turn back and let 14 kids starve to death? "No, ma'am." Her face hardened. "You do not understand. I have already failed one child. I will not fail 14 more by killing the one man who offered to help. And I won't live with myself knowing I had a chance to save them and walked away. I've been running from my daughter's death for 6 years. I'm done running." They stood facing each other in the blazing heat, two people torn between duty and survival. "You said you'd rather die," Lucas said quietly. "Back at that auction, you meant it. I saw it in your eyes. Same look Sarah had when she stood up to her mother. Same look that says some things are worth dying for. That was before what? Before you had hope, before someone gave a damn." His voice rose. "I'm saying I'd rather live doing this than die doing nothing. I'm saying those 14 kids deserve a chance, even if I don't make it to see them saved." Ayanna's eyes glistened. "You're a fool." "Probably. But I'm a fool who's walking south. You coming or not?" She studied him for a long moment. Then, despite everything, she almost smiled. "Then we walk together, and if you fall, I carry you. Deal. And if you fall, I carry you." They walked until the sun began to set, finally making camp in a dried riverbed. Lucas's chest pain had gotten worse. Every breath felt like someone was driving a knife between his ribs. He coughed, trying to hide the blood on his hand. Ayanna made tea from desert sage, coaxing the bitter leaves to release whatever medicine they held. "Drink. It will help your heart." He drank, grateful for her knowledge. They sat by the small fire, sharing the last of the dried meat. "Tell me about your daughter's death." Ayanna said. "The truth." Lucas stiffened. "I told you. You told me a lie. I see it in your eyes. You carry truth and lie together." She leaned forward. "You did not kill her, but you know who did." The words hit him like a physical blow. No one had ever seen through him before, not the sheriff, not the townspeople, not even Emily's parents, but this Apache woman, who'd known him less than a day, saw straight through to the center of his pain. His hand moved to the leather pouch against his chest. Inside, Emily's suicide note had been folded and refolded so many times the creases were wearing through. "No one's ever read this but me," he said, pulling it out with shaking hands. He handed it to Ayanna. She opened it carefully, reading by firelight. The letter trembled in Ayanna's hands as she read Emily's confession by firelight. The handwriting was shaky, desperate, each word seeming to bleed into the next. "My dearest Lucas, I cannot live with what I have done. This morning, Sarah's birthday, I was drunk again. I know I promised to stop. I know I broke that promise 100 times before. When you confronted me about the bottle, I felt such rage, not at you, at myself, at what I had become. When Sarah ran outside, I grabbed your rifle. I thought it was unloaded. God help me, I thought it was unloaded. The shot rang out and my baby fell. My beautiful baby girl. You found her in the grass. I told you to say it was you, to protect me, and you did. You loved me enough to take the blame. But I cannot let you carry this lie any more. I cannot live knowing what I took from you, from her, from the world. Tell Sarah I am sorry. Tell Lucas he was always good. Emily. Ayanna folded the letter carefully, her hands reverent. She handed it back to Lucas, who tucked it against his heart once more. "Why did you not tell the truth?" she asked. "Because I loved her once, because she was Sarah's mother, because the truth wouldn't bring my daughter back." He stared into the flames, and because Emily suffered enough. Letting the world hate her memory wouldn't change anything. You carry a lie to protect a dead woman's honor. I carry the truth. I just don't speak it. Ayanna touched his weathered hand. You are a good man, Lucas Brennan. He shook his head. A good man would have hidden the bottles, would have forced her to get help, would have kept his daughter safe. A good man cannot control another person's demons. They sat in silence, the desert night cold around them. Above, stars scattered across the sky like Sarah's freckles. You called those children yours, Lucas said. The 14, but you said you're just their keeper. Ayanna's face closed off. I spoke wrong. No. You spoke true first, then lied second. Tell me. She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, barely above a whisper, I was a mother once. I failed. What happened? I do not wish to speak of it. Fair enough, but you're not failing those 14, walking 100 miles through hell to save them. That's not failure. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. Ayanna looked at him, tears catching the firelight. What if we do not make it in time? Then we die knowing we tried. That's more than most folks can say. They slept back to back that night, sharing warmth against the cold desert darkness. Lucas dreamed of Sarah running through tall grass, always just out of reach. Ayanna dreamed of a baby boy with a crescent moon birthmark, crying as soldiers carried him away. Morning came harsh and bright. The canteen was empty. Lucas's lips were already cracking, his tongue thick in his mouth. They had perhaps 12 hours before dehydration killed them both. We need water, Ayanna said, scanning the horizon. Nearest water is 20 miles south. We will be dead in 20 miles. She climbed to higher ground, shading her eyes. Lucas watched her. Seeing the warrior, she must have been fierce, capable, unbreaking. After several minutes, she pointed west. Birds! 2 miles that direction. Birds mean water. Lucas looked. Sure enough, a handful of ravens circled in the distance. I can make 2 miles. He couldn't. Halfway there, his legs gave out. The pain in his chest exploded, radiating up his jaw and down both arms. The world tilted sideways. He hit the ground hard, dust filling his mouth. Ayanna's face appeared above him, blurry and distant. He tried to speak, but no words came. She had a choice. Leave him here, get water, come back, or drag him with her and risk both their deaths. Every second mattered. Every moment of delay brought those 14 children closer to death. She chose him. Dragging Lucas's unconscious body to a rock overhang took everything she had. She propped him in the shade, checked his pulse, weak but present, and ran toward the birds. The spring was small, barely more than a seep in the rocks, but it was water. She drank desperately, filled the canteen, and ran back. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. She didn't stop. Lucas was gray when she returned, lips blue, chest barely moving. She poured water into his mouth, singing an Apache healing song her teacher had taught her years ago. The words called to the spirits of earth and sky, begging them to hold this man's soul a little longer. His eyes fluttered open. Am I dead? Not yet. Drink. He drank, coughing, then drank more. Color slowly returned to his face. He sat up, wincing. You came back. I gave my word to you and to my children. Could have left me, saved time. Time is worthless if I lose my honor getting there. Lucas managed a weak smile. Thank you. They rested in the shade for an hour, rationing the water. Lucas felt stronger but knew it was temporary. His heart was running on borrowed time and stubbornness. Tell me about them, he said. The 14 children. Ayana's face softened. She began describing each one Rebecca. 15 years old, the leader, strong, like her mother must have been, brave enough to keep the others calm when fear threatened to consume them. Thomas and William, 9 and 11, both blind from smoke bombs during a cavalry raid. They'd learned to navigate by sound, by touch, by the voices of their siblings. Little Wolf, only 4 years old, who hadn't spoken a word since watching his parents murdered in front of him. He communicated through drawings, each one filled with fire and blood and loss. Maria, 6, who sang constantly to keep the fear away. Her voice was the heartbeat of the group. And Sarah, 8 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, found 2 years ago after a wagon train attack. She'd lost all memory of her life before, remembered nothing but violence and fear. There was a scar on the back of her neck, Y-shaped, from a burn when she was a baby. Lucas's heart stopped. What did you say? Sarah, the white girl. We found her after. The scar, describe it. On the back of her neck, shaped like the letter Y. She said it happened when she was an infant, a fire. Her father saved her, but they both were marked. Lucas's hands shook as he pulled down his collar, revealing an identical Y-shaped scar at the base of his neck. Born in the same fire. My father pulled us both out. We wore matching marks our whole lives. Ayana's eyes widened. Your daughter. Emily said she died. We had a funeral, closed casket. I never saw her body. I thought, his voice broke. She told me Sarah was too damaged to see, that I should remember her as she was. But it was all lies. Everything was lies. Emily lied about the shooting. Why not about the death? Lucas pressed his hands to his face, shoulders shaking. Aunt, my baby girl is alive. All these years I thought that she was dead. I carried that guilt, that grief, and she was alive. She does not remember you. Lucas, the trauma took her memories. I don't care. I don't care if she never remembers. She's alive. God in heaven, she's alive. He stood suddenly, strength flooding through him despite his failing heart. How far? 3 more days at this pace. Then we run. They pushed harder that afternoon, covering 15 miles before nightfall. Lucas's chest screamed in protest, but he ignored it. His daughter was alive. Nothing else mattered. That night, they didn't know they were being followed. Captain James Hardwick had been tracking Ayanna for 3 months. The woman who killed his brother Tom deserved to hang, and he'd make sure she did. He'd picked up their trail easily, 2 people on foot, one clearly injured, heading south into impossible terrain. He had 4 men with him, rough bounty hunters motivated by the $200 reward, dead or alive. The poster said Hardwick preferred alive. He wanted to look her in the eyes when they slipped the noose around her neck, but something gnawed at him. When he'd seen her at the auction, something in her face had struck him as familiar. The shape of her eyes, the set of her jaw. It reminded him of someone, though he couldn't place who. He'd been orphaned at 3, left at Fort Apache with no memory of his mother. The soldier said she was white, that she died giving birth. But the other boys had beaten him for his brown skin, called him half-breed, dirty Apache. He'd learned to hate that part of himself, joined the cavalry to prove his loyalty, to kill the savages in his blood. Tom had been the only person who never judged him for his heritage. And this Apache woman had killed him. We'll have them by tomorrow night, Hardwick told his men. Push hard. Back at the dried riverbed, Lucas couldn't sleep. The knowledge that Sarah was alive burned through him like wildfire. Ayanna sat beside him, watching stars wheel overhead. I must tell you something, she said finally, about why I understand your pain. Lucas listened as she spoke, her voice breaking with old grief. 22 years ago, she had been 16. A cavalry sergeant had raped her during peace negotiations. Her tribe wanted to kill the half-white baby, called it a bad omen. But the medicine woman who raised Ayanna saved the child. She kept her son until he was 3 years old, named him James, after her father who died defending their people. She loved him with everything she had. Then the cavalry came for more talks. The sergeant saw the boy, recognized his own features in the child's face. He threatened to report that savages had kidnapped and killed a white baby. The army would come. Everyone would die. The medicine woman made the choice for her. Give him to them. He will live better among whites than die among Apache. The hardest moment of Ayanna's life was leaving her 3-year-old son at the Fort orphanage. She'd kissed his forehead one last time, memorizing the crescent moon birthmark on his right shoulder. Then she'd hidden on the hillside, watching soldiers take him inside, watching him cry for her. I have thought of him every day since, she whispered. Wondered if he hates me, wondered if he lives, wondered if he knows I loved him enough to let him go. That's not failure, Lucas said firmly. That's the bravest kind of love. It was cowardice. No, ma'am. You chose his life over your heart. That's what parents do. We sacrifice ourselves so our children survive. He thought of Emily, of the lie he carried. Sometimes sacrifice means taking the blame. Sometimes it means walking away. But it's always love. Ayanna wiped her eyes. Do you think he lives? I think he's out there somewhere, and I think when we get those 14 kids to safety, we're going to find him. She smiled through tears. You cannot promise such things. Maybe not, but I can promise to try. They embraced, 2 broken people holding each other up under a canopy of indifferent stars. The next morning, they'd covered another 20 miles when rifle shots cracked the air. Dirt exploded at their feet. 5 riders thundered toward them from the north. Lucas grabbed Ayanna's arm. Run, not without you. The riders circled them, rifles trained. The leader dismounted a man in cavalry uniform, maybe 35. with sharp features and eyes full of hatred. "Yeah, yeah." "Well, well," Captain Hardwick said, "the savage and her white savior." Lucas stepped in front of Ayanna, hands raised. "We don't want trouble. You got trouble the second you stole my prisoner. That woman killed my brother. I bought her fair and square, $3 at public auction." $3! Hardwick laughed harshly. "That's theft, old man. She's worth 200, and she's coming with me. She's a free woman now. Let her go." Hardwick's eyes narrowed. "She murdered Tom Hardwick's good soldier, good man. She stabbed him like an animal." Ayanna spat at his feet. "Your brother was a rapist. He and 2 others tried to defile me. I killed them to defend my honor. You lie. I remember every detail. Tom grabbed my hair. The other one tore my dress. The third held my arms. I had a knife in my boot. I stabbed the first through his heart. I threw my knife into the second's throat. Your precious Tom tried to run. I caught him and made sure he would never force himself on another woman." Hardwick's face went purple with rage. He raised his rifle toward Ayanna's head. Lucas moved without thinking, placing himself directly in the line of fire. "You'll have to shoot me first." "Move aside or die with her." "Then shoot." They stood frozen, a tableau of violence held back by one man's stubborn courage. Hardwick's finger tightened on the trigger. Then Ayanna spoke, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Captain, you have a birthmark on your right shoulder." Hardwick froze. "How do you know that?" "Show me." "Why would I?" "Show me." Something in her voice, command mixed with desperate hope, made him hesitate. Slowly, he pulled aside his collar. There, unmistakable, was a crescent moon birthmark. Ayanna staggered, nearly falling. Lucas caught her. "James," she whispered. "My James?" Hardwick's rifle lowered slightly. "How do you know my name?" "Because I gave it to you, 22 years ago, when you were 3 days old." The desert went silent except for the wind. Hardwick's 4 men exchanged confused glances, but their captain seemed rooted to the spot, his rifle forgotten in his hands. "You're lying," he said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Ayanna pulled down her own collar, revealing an identical crescent moon birthmark on her right shoulder. "You had the same mark when I birthed you, when I nursed you, when I kissed you goodbye. My mother was white. The orphanage said she died in childbirth. The orphanage lied to protect you. I am a patriot. I am your mother." Tears streamed down her face. "I left you there to save your life." Hardwick's hands shook. The rifle clattered to the ground. "I built my entire life hating Apaches, just killing Apaches, and you're telling me I am Apache? You are half Apache, Hussich. Your father was the cavalry sergeant who raped me during peace talks. I was 16. No." Hardwick backed away. "No. This is some kind of trick." Lucas stepped forward carefully. "Son, look at her. Really look. She's not my mother. Mothers don't abandon their children. Mothers do, when it's the only way to keep them alive." Lucas's voice was steady, gentle. "Your mother made an impossible choice. Don't make one you'll regret." Hardwick's face twisted with 22 years of pain, confusion, rage. "They beat me. Every day at that orphanage, they beat me for being brown, called me half-breed, dirty savage, said I was cursed." He looked at Ayanna with something between hatred and longing. "You knew that would happen. You left me there anyway. I left you there so you would not be killed as an infant. My tribe wanted your blood because you were half white. Your father wanted you dead because you were evidence of his crime. The orphanage was the only place you could survive." "Survive?" Hardwick laughed bitterly. "I learned to hate myself, learned to kill my own people to prove I wasn't one of them. Is that the survival you wanted for me?" Ayanna's voice broke. "I wanted you to live, that is all. I visited the fort once a year until you were 10. Watching from the hills, I saw you learn to ride, saw you grow strong. When you joined the cavalry at 18, I stopped coming. It hurt too much to watch you become a soldier against my people. You watched me." Hardwick's voice cracked. "You were there, and you never— What would you have had me do? Take you back to a tribe that wanted you dead? Steal you away to a life of running and hiding? Yes." The word exploded from him. "Yes, I would rather have run with you than spent my childhood being beaten for the color of my skin." The 4 bounty hunters shifted uncomfortably. One cleared his throat. "Captain, what do you want us to do?" Hardwick didn't answer. He was staring at Ayanna, seeing her for the first time not as the enemy, but as the woman who gave him life. His rifle lay in the dust between them like a bridge he couldn't cross. "Tell me about Tom," Ayanna said quietly. "What kind of man was he?" "A good man, a soldier, my friend. Did you know what he did in his free time? Did you know he and his friends hunted Apache women away from their camps? That's a lie. Is it? Ask yourself honestly. Your brother Tom, who drank too much and bragged too loud, did he ever tell you about the women?" Hardwick's face paled. There had been stories, rumors he'd dismissed. Tom coming back to camp with scratches on his face, laughing about squaws who fought back. Hardwick had never wanted to believe his only friend could be capable of such things. "He tried to rape me," Ayanna continued, her voice steady. "Him and 2 others. They followed me from the creek where I was gathering water for my children. They tore my clothes, held me down. I had a knife. I used it. So you admit you killed them. I admit I defended myself, as any warrior would, as you would if someone tried to violate you." Hardwick picked up his rifle, and Lucas tensed, ready to throw himself in front of Ayanna again. But Hardwick didn't aim it. He just held it, staring at the weapon like it was something foreign. "What am I supposed to do with this?" His voice was barely a whisper. "I've spent 3 months tracking you, dreaming about watching you hang, and now you're telling me you're my mother, that everything I believed is a lie." Ayanna took a step forward. "I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not ask you to love me. But I ask you to help us save 14 children who have done nothing wrong. After that, if you still want your revenge, I will accept it. Why should I trust you? Because they are innocent, like you were innocent, and they deserve the chance you got to survive." Lucas added, "One of those children is my daughter. I thought she was dead for 6 years. Found out yesterday she's alive, waiting in a cave 50 miles south with 13 other kids. They're starving, dying of thirst. We've got maybe 2 days before it's too late." Hardwick looked between them, seeing the desperation, the truth in their faces. "Why would I help you?" "Because you're better than the men who beat you as a child," Lucas said. "Because you can choose to save lives instead of taking them. Because somewhere inside you is the 3-year-old boy who wanted his mother, and maybe This is your chance to understand why she had to let you go." The silence stretched. One of the bounty hunters spoke up. "Captain, we were hired to bring her in. $200. Remember?" Hardwick turned to his men slowly. "You're dismissed. This is personal now. But the money?" "I said you're dismissed. Ride back to Fort Verde and tell them the trail went cold." The four men exchanged looks, shrugged, and mounted their horses. Easy money wasn't worth getting caught in whatever family drama this was turning into. They rode north, leaving Hardwick alone with Lucas and Ayanna. Hardwick studied his mother in the harsh sunlight. She was smaller than he'd imagined, weathered by years of survival, but her eyes held the same determination he saw in his own reflection every morning. "2 days to save 14 children," he said finally. "Yes. And one of them is his daughter." "Yes. And if I help you, what then, do we pretend to be a happy family?" Ayanna shook her head. "I do not expect happiness. I expect nothing from you. But those children expect someone to save them, and we are all they have." Hardwick holstered his rifle. "I have 3 horses. We can make better time mounted." Lucas felt his chest loosen slightly. "You're helping us." "I'm helping children, nothing more." Hardwick wouldn't meet Ayanna's eyes. "After they're safe, we settle our accounts." "Agreed," Ayanna said softly. They mounted quickly, Lucas and Ayanna sharing one horse, Hardwick on another, supplies loaded on the third. The pace was brutal but necessary. Every hour mattered now. As they rode, Hardwick found himself watching Ayanna's back, seeing his similarities he'd never noticed before. The way she sat a horse, the way she scanned the horizon. These weren't learned behaviors, they were in his blood. Lucas noticed the young captain's internal struggle. "It's a lot to take in," he said. "That's an understatement. She gave you up to save you. My wife shot our daughter and let me wink the blame. Both women made terrible choices out of love. The question is whether we let those choices destroy us or teach us something. What did they teach you? That love doesn't always look the way we think it should. That sacrifice comes in forms we don't recognize until years later." Lucas coughed, pain flaring in his chest. "That maybe forgiveness is the only way forward." Hardwick was quiet for several minutes. Then, "How did you forgive someone who took everything from you?" "You start by understanding they were trying to give you everything they could. By late afternoon, they'd covered 30 miles. Lucas's condition had worsened despite the faster pace. His lips were blue, his breathing shallow. Ayanna kept glancing back at him with growing concern. "We need to stop," she said. "He cannot continue like this." "I'm fine," Lucas wheezed. "You are dying." "Not till those kids are safe." Hardwick called a halt anyway. They made camp as the sun began to set. Still 25 miles from Black Mesa, Lucas collapsed as soon as he dismounted, his chest heaving. Ayanna knelt beside him, checking his pulse. "His heart is failing." "How long does he have?" Hardwick asked, surprised by his own concern for this stranger. "Hours, maybe less." Lucas grabbed her wrist. "Don't stop for me. Take the horses. Get to Sarah. Tell her I never stopped looking." "I am not leaving you. Those kids are more important. You are important, too." "I'm dead anyway. Have been for 8 months. This is just my body catching up." Hardwick found himself kneeling beside them. "The old man's right. We should push on, get the children, come back for him. Lucas shook his head weakly. Won't be here when you get back, but that's okay. Just save them, especially Sarah. Tell her about the $3 doll. She'll remember. Ahita's tears fell onto his weathered face. You saved me. Let me save you. You already did, ma'am. It gave me a reason to die for something that mattered. He smiled faintly. That's more than most men get. A sound cut through the emotional moment thunder. They looked up. Dark clouds were gathering on the horizon, moving fast. Not rain clouds. Something worse. Hardwick stood, face grim. Haboob? Dan Storm? Big one. How long? Ayanna asked. 3 hours, maybe less. Can we outrun it to the caves? Not carrying him. Maybe if we leave him and ride hard. Lucas tried to sit up. Then go. Don't let my sorry hide kill those children. Ayanna looked between the approaching storm and the dying man who'd given everything for strangers. Then she looked at Hardwick, her son, still deciding whether to hate her or help her. We need to shelter, she said. Fast. Hardwick scanned the terrain. There, rock formation, half a mile east, might have an overhang. They loaded Lucas onto a horse and rode hard for the rocks. The wind was already picking up, carrying the taste of dust and violence. Behind them, the wall of sand approached like a living thing, a mile high and hungry. The overhang was barely large enough for 3 people and 3 horses, but it would have to do. They crowded inside as the storm hit with savage force. The world turned red. Visibility dropped to nothing. The wind howled like tortured spirits. Lucas lay on the ground, barely conscious. Ayanna held him, singing the Apache healing song she'd sung before. Hardwick watched them, something breaking inside his carefully constructed walls. He saw his mother's devotion to this stranger, saw her refusal to abandon him, even when logic demanded it, saw the same choice she'd made 22 years ago, stay with someone she loved or save others who needed her, except this time she was choosing differently. Why don't you leave him? Hardwick asked over the storm's roar. Ayanna looked up. Because I already left one person I should have fought harder to keep, I will not make that mistake twice. You're talking about me? Yes. You said you had no choice. There's always a choice. I chose safety over presence. I chose your survival over your happiness. It was the right choice and the wrong choice at the same time. Hardwick moved closer. Those 14 children. They're why you were away from hiding. Why you got captured. Yes, I went to find food, medicine. They are orphans, Apache, white, mixed. No one wanted them, so I took them. Like you couldn't take me. This time I had a choice. This time I chose to keep them. The storm raged for hours. Lucas drifted in and out of consciousness, each breath more labored than the last. At one point, he opened his eyes and looked directly at Hardwick. "Save her!" he whispered. "Save your mother. She left me. She loved you. There's a difference." "How do you know?" "Because I see it in her eyes every time she looks at you. Same way I looked at Sarah. Love doesn't die just because the person leaves." The words hit Hardwick like a physical blow. He turned away, but couldn't escape the truth of them. As dawn approached, the storm finally passed. They emerged from the shelter, covered in dust, but alive. The landscape had been transformed, new dunes where flat ground had been, and 20 miles south 14 children waited, not knowing if salvation was coming or if they'd been forgotten in the desert that tried to swallow everything whole. The morning sun revealed a transformed desert, but there was no time to marvel at it. Lucas couldn't stand. His skin had taken on a gray pallor. His breathing so shallow, Ayanna had to press her ear to his chest to confirm his heart still beat. "We have to move now," Hardwick said, checking the position of the sun. 15 miles to Black Mesa. If we push the horses, we can make it by afternoon. Ayanna looked down at Lucas, unconscious in her arms. He will not survive the journey. He won't survive staying here either. At least if we ride, there's a chance we get the children and come back in time. In time for what? To watch him die? Better than all of us dying. Hardwick's voice was harsh, but his eyes betrayed something softer. "You taught me survival means making hard choices. Make one now." Ayanna closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 22 years of regret pressing down on her shoulders. She'd left her son once to save him. Now she had to choose between staying with Lucas or saving 14 children who trusted her to return. "Load him on the horse," she said quietly. "We take him with us. That'll slow us down by hours. Then we ride faster." Hardwick started to argue, then saw the steel in her eyes. He'd inherited that same stubbornness, that same refusal to abandon people even when logic demanded it. Maybe some things truly were in the blood. They secured Lucas across one horse. Ayanna rode with Hardwick on another, and the third carried their dwindling supplies. The pace was punishing. The horses sensed the urgency, pushing themselves beyond what should have been possible. 2 hours in, Lucas's eyes opened. He grabbed Ayanna's hand, weak-egged. "Sarah! Tell me about Sarah." Ayanna described the girl she'd found 2 years ago, wandering in the aftermath of a wagon train massacre. Blonde hair matted with blood, blue eyes vacant with shock, unable to remember her own name. She'd written Sarah in the dirt when asked who she was, but nothing else came back. "She draws pictures," Ayanna said. "Always the same scene, a house, a woman with a bottle, a man crying, fire. She doesn't know what it means. It's the day Emily shot her." Lucas's voice was barely audible. "The day our life burned down. She remembers in pictures what her mind can't hold in words. She is strong, brave. She protects the younger children. That's my girl." A tear slipped down his weathered cheek. "Always protecting everyone but herself." At noon, they crested a ridge and Black Mesa came into view. The Red Rock Formation rose from the desert like a cathedral built by ancient gods. Caves dotted the cliff face, dark mouths leading into unknown depths. "Which cave?" Hardwick asked. "Third from the east, behind where the waterfall runs in winter." They approached cautiously. There were no sounds, no children's voices, no movement. Dread settled over Ayanna like a burial shroud. "They should hear us," she said, dismounting before the horse fully stopped. "They should come out." She ran to the cave entrance, calling out, "Rebecca, little wolf, it's me, Ayanna, I've come back." Silence swallowed her words. Lucas had somehow found the strength to slide off his horse. He stumbled toward the cave, Hardwick catching him before he fell. Together they entered the darkness. Hardwick lit a torch from his pack. The flickering light revealed huddled shapes at the back of the cave, so still they could have been stones. Ayanna's heart shattered. Then one shape moved. Rebecca lifted her head weakly, her 15-year-old face aged by suffering. "Ayanna, is that really you? I am here, my daughter. I am here." Ayanna rushed forward, catching the girl as she collapsed. "I am so sorry. I'm so sorry I took so long." The cave came alive with weak movements. 14 children, ranging from 4 to 15, in various states of desperation. 2 boys lay unconscious, their breathing shallow. A little girl whimpered for water, and in the corner a small blonde child sat rocking, her eyes fixed on nothing. Lucas fell to his knees beside her. "Sarah?" The girl didn't respond. "Sweetheart, it's me. It's Daddy." Nothing. She continued rocking, humming a tuneless song. Hardwick took command, his military training overriding his emotional turmoil. "We need water, food, medicine, now." They worked frantically. Hardwick distributed water carefully. Knowing too much too fast could kill someone in their condition. Ayanna checked each child, her hands gentle but efficient. Lucas sat beside Sarah, talking softly, desperately trying to reach through the walls trauma had built. "Remember the doll I bought you? Cost $3. You said it was the best present ever. You named her Grace after your middle name. Remember?" Sarah's rocking slowed slightly, but she didn't look at him. Rebecca, drinking slowly from a canteen, told their story. 3 days after Ayanna left, men had come, not soldiers, but worse bounty hunters looking for an Apache woman with children. The children had hidden deeper in the cave system, getting lost in the tunnels. Thomas, one of the blind boys, had wandered off. They'd spent 2 days searching, finally finding him unconscious near an underground spring. But the spring had dried up days later. Their food ran out on day 5. The water ran out yesterday morning. "I tried to be strong like you," Rebecca whispered. "I tried to keep them alive." "You did keep them alive." Ayanna held her close. "You are stronger than I ever was." But 3 of the children were in critical condition. Thomas and William, the blind boys, had severe malnutrition. Their pulses were thready, their skin cold despite the desert heat. And little Wolf, the 4-year-old who never spoke, had gone completely catatonic. Lucas, despite his own failing heart, moved to the blind boys. "I've seen this before. Logger camp, winter of 76. They need warmth, body heat." He lay between them, sharing what little life his body had left. Ayanna wanted to protest, wanted to tell him he was killing himself. But she saw the determination in his eyes. He'd already accepted his death. Now he was choosing how to spend his final hours. Sarah finally moved. She stopped rocking and looked at Lucas with her vacant blue eyes. Something flickered there, recognition, trying to break through trauma's prison. "The man who cries," she said, her voice flat and distant. "From my pictures." Lucas's breath caught. "Yes, baby, that's me. I'm the man who cries. You cried when the loud noise happened, when the woman dropped the stick that makes loud noises. The rifle. Yes, I cried because I thought I'd lost you forever." Sarah tilted her head, processing. "But I'm not lost. I'm here." "Yes, you are. And I found you, finally found you." She reached out slowly, touching his face with small fingers. "You're real." "I'm real, sweetheart. I'm your daddy, and I'm real, and I love you more than all the stars in the sky." I wonder something broke in Sarah's eyes. Tears came first, then sobs. Then she threw herself into Lucas's arms. "Daddy, I remember everything. Mommy was sick, and the gun went off, and there was blood, and bad men took me, and I couldn't remember who I was." Lucas held her, both of them weeping around them. The other children watched, some crying too, understanding without words that something precious and broken was being made whole. Hardwick stood apart, watching his mother comfort Rebecca, watching Lucas reunite with his daughter, watching this makeshift family knit itself together through shared suffering, and something in his chest ached, not pain, but the ghost of what he'd never had: a mother's arms, a father's love, belonging. Ayanna looked up and met his eyes across the cave. In that moment, mother and son saw each other clearly. She saw the boy he'd been, beaten and alone. He saw the girl she'd been, forced to give up her child to save him. "James," she said softly, "my son." And something inside Captain James Hardwick, built over 22 years of hate and loneliness, began to crack. The cave entrance suddenly darkened. Hardwick spun, hand moving to his pistol, but it was only Dr. Samuel Fletcher from the nearby settlement of Mesa Springs. The 60-year-old physician carried his medical bag, his face grim with purpose. "I was heading to Fort Verde when I saw buzzards circling," Fletcher said, entering the cave. "Thought I'd find corpses. Glad to see I was wrong." "How did you know to call it here?" Ayanna asked. "Didn't. Pure chance. Or providence, if you're the believing sort." He knelt beside the blind boys, checking their vitals with practiced efficiency. "These two need a hospital. Soon? Nearest hospital is 2 days' ride," Hardwick said. "Then we'd better start writing." Fletcher examined Little Wolf next, gently trying to rouse the catatonic child. The boy didn't respond, his eyes fixed on something only he could see. This one's locked inside himself. Seen it before in children who witness too much horror. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. He moved to Lucas, taking one look at the gray-skinned man and shaking his head. "This one should already be dead." "Stubborn," Lucas wheezed. "Always been my worst quality. Your heart's barely beating. What are you doing lying with these boys, keeping them warm, sharing what I got left?" Fletcher's expression softened. "You're a fool, a noble fool, but a fool nonetheless." He turned to Hardwick. "Can you send men to transport the critical case?" "I dismissed my men, but I can ride to Mesa Springs, bring back wagons and help. Do it, fast." Hardwick looked at Ayanna, questions in his eyes. She nodded. "Go. We will be here." After he left, the cave settled into an uneasy quiet. Sarah wouldn't leave Lucas's side, clinging to him like she might disappear if she let go. Rebecca helped Ayanna distribute what little food remained. The other children huddled together, drawing strength from proximity. Dr. Fletcher pulled Ayanna aside. "I need to know what happened, all of it." She told him everything: the rape, the 3 soldiers, the pregnancy, the 14 orphans, the auction, Lucas's $3, the journey through hell to reach this moment. Fletcher listened without judgment. When she finished, he said simply, "You're carrying a child." "Yes, 3 months." From the soldier who assaulted you. Yes. What will you do with it? Ayanna's hand moved to her stomach. I do not know. Part of me wants to hate this child, but I already failed one son by giving him away. I cannot fail another. That's not the same situation. Is it not both children born from violence, both half white, half Apache, both unwanted by the world? Here Fletcher studied her face. The first child. What became of him? He is the cavalry captain who just left. The one helping us? The doctor's eyebrows rose. The son you gave up is now helping you save other children. Yes, and he knows you're his mother. He knows. He has not forgiven, but he is here. Fletcher smiled slightly. Then perhaps you didn't fail him after all. As afternoon stretched toward evening, Hardwick returned with 2 wagons, 6 men from Mesa Springs, and enough supplies to stabilize everyone. The town doctor had sent medicine. A rancher's wife had sent blankets and food. Even in this harsh land, kindness could still bloom. They loaded the 3 critical children carefully. Thomas and William, the blind brothers, were barely conscious. Little Wolf remained catatonic, his small body limp as they lifted him. Lucas refused to be moved. I'm not going anywhere till I know these kids are safe. You need a hospital, too, Fletcher argued. Need and want are different things. Doc, I want to see my daughter smile one more time. That's all. Sarah, who'd been quiet since her memory returned, suddenly spoke. Daddy, tell me about Mommy. Everyone in the cave went still. This was the conversation Lucas had dreaded. The truth he'd carried alone for 6 years. He pulled Sarah close. Your mommy loved you more than anything in this world. Then why did she shoot me? The question hung in the air like smoke. Lucas looked at Ayanna, who nodded encouragingly. Your mommy was sick, Lucas began carefully. Not sick in her body, but sick in her heart and her mind. She drank things that made the sickness worse. That morning, on your birthday, we argued about it. You ran outside to get away from the fighting. Mommy grabbed my rifle. She didn't mean to fire it, but the sickness in her mind made her confused, made her angry at things that weren't there. She meant to shoot you, Sarah said, not as a question, but as a statement. Lucas closed his eyes. Yes, baby, I think she did. But she hit me instead? Yes, and you told everyone it was you who did it. I did. Why? Lucas struggled to find words a 9-year-old could understand. Because your mommy was already dying inside from the guilt. Because the truth wouldn't bring you back. Because sometimes love means taking the blame for someone else's mistakes. Did she love me? So much it broke her. When she realized what she'd done, she couldn't live with it. She walked into the river 3 weeks later. He pulled out the worn suicide note. She wrote this before she died. Said to tell you she was sorry. Said to tell me I was always good. Sarah took the letter with trembling hands. She couldn't read all the words, but she understood the weight of them. Mommy was sick, and you loved her anyway. Yes, and you forgave her. Lucas had never actually said the words, not even to himself. But looking at his daughter, alive and whole despite everything, he realized forgiveness had happened without him noticing. It had crept in slowly, displacing the anger and grief. Yes, baby, I forgive her. Sarah handed the letter back. Then I forgive her too, And I forgive you for lying, because you were trying to protect her memory. I don't deserve forgiveness. I should have stopped her drinking, should have kept you safe. Daddy, you can't control what other people do, only what you do. She spoke with wisdom beyond her years. You did what you thought was right. That's all anyone can do. Across the cave, Hardwick listened to this exchange. He heard echoes of his own story in theirs. A mother who made a terrible choice, a child who suffered for it, the question of forgiveness hanging in the air like a debt unpaid. Ayanna moved to sit beside him. You heard? Hard not to. Do you understand now why I left you? Hardwick was quiet for a long time. I understand you thought you were saving me. I understand you believed the orphanage was safer than keeping me. I understand you made an impossible choice. But you do not forgive. I don't know what I feel. Anger, grief, loss. But also, he paused, searching for words, I see you with these children. See how you came back for them, how you risked everything, and I realize you would have done the same for me if you could. I would have died to keep you, but you chose to let me go instead. That takes a different kind of courage. They sat in silence, mother and son, neither touching but somehow connected by invisible threads of blood and grief and slowly growing understanding. Fletcher interrupted. The wagons are ready. We need to move the critical cases now if they're going to survive. The children were loaded carefully. Rebecca insisted on going with them, refusing to leave her younger siblings. As they prepared to depart, Thomas, one of the blind boys, suddenly spoke for the first time in days. The lady sang to us, the one who sounds like wind through trees. Ayanna moved to his side. I am here. You came back. You promised, and you came back. I will always come back. No one ever comes back, Thomas whispered. Everyone leaves. Not me, not anymore. The wagons rolled out, carrying 3 children toward hope and healing. 11 remained in the cave, along with Lucas, Ayanna, Hardwick, and Fletcher. The doctor stayed to monitor Lucas, knowing the end was close. As night fell, someone needed to tell the full truth. Ayanna gathered the courage to speak. James, she said to Hardwick, there is more you should know about your father. I know he was a cavalry sergeant. I know he raped you. Yes, but there is more. He died 3 years after you were born, shot by one of his own men during a raid. Good riddance, perhaps. But you should know he tried to find you. 3 times he came to the orphanage asking about a brown-skinned boy. The soldiers turned him away, said no such child existed. I watched from the hills, terrified he would take you, but he never did. I think perhaps he felt shame for what he had done. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know all of it. The evil and the regret, the violence and the attempted redemption. Your father was not just a rapist. He was also a man who may have wanted to make amends. We are all more than our worst acts. Hardwick absorbed this information. I spent my life hating a man I never knew and a woman who gave me life. I built my identity on that hate. And now I don't know who I am. You are my son, Ayanna said firmly. You are Apache and white. You are soldier and family. You are the man who helped save 14 children. That is who you are. For the first time since discovering her identity, Hardwick looked directly at his mother. I am not ready to call you mother, not yet. I do not ask you to, but I'm not leaving either, not until this is finished. That is enough. For now, that is enough. Sarah, overhearing their conversation, left Lucas's side and approached Hardwick. My daddy says forgiveness is hard but worth it. Says it's not for the person who hurt you, it's for yourself. So you don't carry poison forever. Hardwick looked down at this small blonde girl who'd suffered so much, yet still offered wisdom. Your daddy's a smart man, the smartest and the bravest. He walked through the desert with a dying heart just to find me. That's love. Yes, that's what love looks like. Sarah took his hand. Your mommy walked through her own kind of desert to save you. Maybe that's what love looks like, too. Hardwick's eyes burned. He knelt to Sarah's level. Maybe you're right, little one. Across the cave, Lucas watched this exchange with a faint smile. His breathing had become labored, each breath a victory against impossible odds. But he'd lived to see his daughter found. He'd lived to see a mother reunited with her son. He'd lived to see 14 children moving toward safety. It was enough, more than enough. It was everything. 6 months had passed since that desperate rescue in the Black Mesa caves. The Arizona winter was mild, the kind that turned the desert golden instead of white. In Verde Valley, where cottonwoods lined a year-round creek, a ranch was taking shape. 3 cabins stood in a loose triangle around a central yard. The largest housed Lucas and Sarah, though Lucas spent most nights on the porch. Claiming the stars helped him breathe easier. The second sheltered Ayanna and 6 of the younger children. The third belonged to Hardwick and Rebecca, along with 8 of the older children who needed less constant care. The ranch had a name now, painted on a wooden sign that creaked in the wind. $3 Ranch. Some travelers laughed at it, thinking it meant the place was worthless. Those who knew the story understood it meant something money couldn't buy. Lucas sat in a chair on his porch, watching the sun paint the valley in shades of amber and rose. His heart was still weak, but Dr. Fletcher's medicine and Ayanna's herbs had given him months he shouldn't have had. Sarah sat at his feet, sketching in a notebook Rebecca had given her for Christmas. What are you drawing? Sweetheart, our family. She held up the page. 14 children, 3 adults, all holding hands in front of the 3 cabins. Everyone together. Lucas smiled, though the expression cost him. Every emotion, every breath, every moment was borrowed now. That's beautiful, baby. Are you sad, Daddy? Happy's still a thing, remember? Sarah leaned against his leg. She was 9 now, tall for her age, her blonde hair bleached even lighter by the desert sun. The nightmares had faded, replaced by dreams of the future. She wanted to be a teacher, she'd announced last week, wanted to help children who'd forgotten how to read. Across the yard, Ayanna emerged from her cabin suit, her pregnancy now impossible to hide. 6 months along, her belly round with the child she'd decided to keep. The decision hadn't been easy, but watching Lucas fight for every breath had taught her something about the value of life, even life born from violence. Hardwick was teaching the older boys carpentry, building a 4th cabin that would serve as a schoolhouse. Rebecca had taken to teaching naturally, patient with the younger children who struggled with letters. She was 16 now, engaged to Hardwick despite the 19-year age difference. Lucas had given his blessing, seeing genuine love in how they looked at each other. "You hurt her. I'll shoot you with my last bullet," Lucas had said, only half joking. Hardwick had grinned. "Fair enough, sir." Little Wolf, now 5, was speaking in full sentences. The change had come gradually, one word at a time, until suddenly he was chattering like any child. He followed Lucas everywhere, calling him Papa Lucas. Seeking the father he'd lost to violence, Thomas and William, the blind brothers, had returned from the hospital stronger. They'd learned to navigate the ranch by sound and touch, proving to everyone that blindness was inconvenience, not disability. They were training horses now, their heightened senses making them naturals at reading the animals' moods. Fletcher rode out from Mesa Springs every week, ostensibly to check on Lucas, but really to see all of them. He'd become part of the family without anyone quite noticing when it happened. He brought news from town, medicine when needed, and a grandfather's affection to children who'd never known such care. This evening, he arrived with a letter. "This came for you, Lucas." From back east, Lucas took it with trembling hands, recognizing his former in-law's handwriting, Sarah's grandparents, Emily's parents, who'd believed both their daughter and granddaughter were dead. He'd written to them 3 months ago, telling them Sarah lived, telling them the truth about Emily's death. "Want me to read it?" Sarah offered. "No, baby, I got it." He opened the envelope carefully, unfolding pages that smelled of lavender and old grief. The letter was from Emily's mother, Margaret. She wrote that she and her husband had wept for 3 days upon receiving Lucas's news. Wept for joy that Sarah lived, wept for sorrow at Emily's deeper struggles than they'd known, wept for the years Lucas had carried a lie to protect their daughter's memory. "We always knew Emily had demons," Margaret wrote. "We saw her drinking, saw her anger, but we didn't know how to help. We should have tried harder. We should have done more. Please forgive us for not being there when you both needed us." The letter continued. "We would like to visit Sarah, if you'll allow it. We understand if you refuse. We abandoned you in your grief, believed the worst of you, and we don't deserve your forgiveness. But Sarah is our granddaughter, our last connection to Emily, and we would give anything to see her again." Lucas folded the letter carefully. "Your grandparents want to visit?" Sarah looked up. "Mommy's parents?" "Yes." "Do I remember them? You were 7 last time you saw them. They lived in Boston, used to send you books." A memory flickered in Sarah's eyes. "The lady who smelled like flowers, the man who told funny stories, that's them. Can they come?" Lucas smiled. "I'll write them tomorrow. Tell them there's always room at $3 Ranch for family." As darkness fell, everyone gathered for dinner in the central yard. Long tables Lucas had built from cottonwood, benches smoothed by younger hands. 14 children plus 4 adults made for chaos, but the good kind, the kind that filled empty spaces in wounded hearts. Ayanna had cooked stew, helped by Maria and 2 other girls. The blind brothers set the table by counting spaces, never missing a placement. Little Wolf said grace, his small voice carrying across the yard. "Thank you for this food, this family, this home. Thank you for Papa Lucas and Mama Ayanna and Papa James and Mama Rebecca. Thank you for all my brothers and sisters. Amen. Amen," they echoed. During the meal, Hardwick stood, He rarely spoke in front of everyone, but tonight was special. I have an announcement. Rebecca and I are expecting a child. Cheers erupted. The younger children banged spoons on the table. Sarah hugged Rebecca, already planning how she'd help with the baby. Ayanna met Hardwick's eyes across the table, tears streaming down her face. Her son, having a child of his own, creating the family he'd never had. After dinner, after the children had scattered to their evening activities, the adults sat together by the fire, Lucas in his chair, breathing carefully, Ayanna on a bench, one hand on her belly, Hardwick and Rebecca side by side, her head on his shoulder, Dr. Fletcher smoking his pipe, content to observe. "Never thought I'd see this," Lucas said quietly. "A family like this, built from broken pieces. The best things usually are," Fletcher replied. Hardwick spoke, his voice thoughtful. "I spent 22 years hating who I was, hating my brown skin, my Apache blood, everything that made me different." He looked at Ayanna. "I blamed you for all of it, for leaving me, for making me a half-breed, for the beatings and the shame." Ayanna tensed, waiting for the anger she'd grown accustomed to. But Hardwick continued, "I was wrong. You didn't make me anything. You gave me life when your tribe wanted me dead. You let me go when keeping me would have killed us both. You made the hardest choice a mother can make." He paused, struggling with emotion. "I'm not ready to call you mother yet. Maybe I never will be. But I want you to know I understand now, and I forgive you." Ayanna covered her face with her hands, sobs shaking her body. Rebecca held her while Hardwick watched, his own eyes wet. "Thank you," Ayanna whispered. "Thank you, my son." Lucas felt his chest tighten, but not from his failing heart. From joy so pure it hurt worse than pain. He'd lived to see this, lived to see forgiveness bloom in the hardest soil of Sarah appeared at his side, climbing into his lap, though she was getting too big for it. "Daddy, are you happy? Happier than I got any right to be?" "Good, because I need to tell you something." She took his weathered hand in both of hers. "I know you're dying." Lucas went still. "Sarah, it's okay. I'm not scared anymore. Dr. Fletcher explained it to me. Your heart is worn out, like old Grace was worn out." She touched his chest gently. "But you know what? You used your tired heart to save me, to save Ayanna, to save all of us. That's the best way to use up a heart." Lucas couldn't speak, could barely breathe. "When you go," Sarah continued, "I'm going to miss you every single day, but I'm not going to be alone. I have Mama Ayanna and Papa James and Mama Rebecca and all my brothers and sisters. You built us a family before you left. That's the best present you could give me." "You're so wise," Lucas managed. "When did you get so wise? I learned from you. You taught me love means sacrifice. You sacrificed your whole self for us." They sat together as the fire burned low, father and daughter, both knowing their tibble was running out, but grateful for every borrowed moment. 1 month later, Lucas woke before dawn with crushing pain in his chest. He knew immediately this was different from the other times. This was the end arriving right on schedule. He didn't wake anyone. Instead, he walked slowly to the center of the yard, looking at the 3 cabins, the corrals, the garden Ayanna had planted. everything they'd built from $3 and determination. Sarah found him there as the sun rose. She didn't cry, didn't panic. She just sat beside him on the ground, holding his hand. "It's time," she asked. "Yes, baby." "Are you scared?" "Not even a little bit. I get to see your mama now. Get to tell her you're safe and loved and growing into the finest young woman. Tell her I forgive her too." "I will." The others came, then, drawn by some unspoken knowledge. Ayanna knelt on his other side. Hardwick stood behind her, one hand on his mother's shoulder. Rebecca gathered the children, helping them understand without words that Papa Lucas was leaving. Little Wolf broke free and threw himself into Lucas's lap. "No, you can't go. I need you." Lucas held the boy close. "Listen to me, son. You are brave and strong and loved. You're going to grow up and do amazing things, and wherever I am, I'll be cheering for you." One by one, the children came to say goodbye. Some cried, some were silent. All were forever changed by this man who'd given everything for them. To Thomas and William, "You boys are going to train the finest horses in Arizona. I know it." To Maria, "Keep singing. The world needs your voice." To Rebecca, "Take care of your family. You're stronger than you know." To Hardwick, "Thank you for saving my daughter, for saving all of us. You're a good man. James, your mother is proud of you." Hardwick wiped his eyes. "I wouldn't have helped if you hadn't shown me what real courage looks like. You had it in you all along. Just needed someone to see it." Finally, to Ayanna, "You saved me with more than just that healing song. You saved me by giving me purpose, by showing me that dying for something is the only way to truly live. You saved me first," she replied, tears falling freely. $3. You paid $3 when you had nothing left. That is love. Best $3 I ever spent." As the sun climbed higher, Lucas's breathing slowed. Sarah never left his side, talking to him about everything and nothing, filling his last moments with the voice he'd searched for across 6 years and 100 miles of desert. "I love you, Daddy, more than all the stars." "I love you more than that," he whispered, "more than all the stars and all the sand and all the space between them." His eyes closed. His chest rose one last time, then stilled. The $3 ranch mourned. But even in grief, there was gratitude. Lucas Brennan had died doing exactly what he'd wanted, making sure the people he loved were safe. They buried him under the old cottonwood near the creek, beneath a marker that read, "Lucas Brennan, father to many, hero to all, he gave everything." The night after the funeral, Sarah sat by his grave, drawing in her notebook. Ayanna found her there. "What are you drawing?" Sarah showed her the picture. Lucas in heaven, holding hands with Emily, both of them smiling down at the ranch, at their daughter, at the family they'd helped create even after death. "They're together now," Sarah said, "both forgiven, both at peace." Ayanna sat beside her, this 9-year-old child who taught them all what resilience looked like. "Your father once told me he was given 14 chances to get it right, but he got it right the first time. The moment he paid $3 for an angry woman in chains. And look what those $3 became," Sarah said, gesturing at the ranch, at the cabins glowing with lamplight, at the family gathered for evening meal. "Everything." "Yes," Ayanna agreed. "Everything." 10 years later, The $3 Ranch was famous throughout Arizona Territory. People came from hundreds of miles to see the place where broken people became family, where $3 had bought 15 lives and countless futures. Sarah Brennan was 18 now, a teacher at the ranch's school. She'd never married, choosing instead to devote her life to educating orphans who came through their doors. The ranch had grown to house 30 children, then 40, then 50. Ayanna's son, whom she'd named James Lucas in honor of his brother and the man who'd saved them all, was 10 years old. He knew his conception story, knew the violence of his beginning, but also knew the love that had chosen his life. Hardwick raised him as his own, teaching him to be proud of both his heritages. Rebecca and Hardwick had 4 children now, all healthy, all aware of their unusual family story. The Blind brothers ran the most successful horse training operation in the territory. Little Wolf, a Biss, now 15, wanted to be a doctor like Fletcher, who still visited weekly, though he was 70 now. The $3 Ranch became a symbol. People pointed to it as proof that love could grow in the cruelest soil, that family didn't require blood, that $3 and one man's failing heart could change the world. Sarah visited her father's grave every morning, telling him about her students, about the ranch, about the lives he'd saved, continuing to save others. She'd never forgotten his last words, never stopped believing in the love that sacrificed everything. And sometimes, when the wind blew just right through the cottonwoods, she swore she could hear him singing the lullaby he'd sung when she was small. Sleep, my child, beneath the stars. Tomorrow brings new hope. $3, that's all it took to start everything. But what it became was priceless. Sometimes the greatest treasures in life cost almost nothing. Lucas Brennan had $3 to his name and a heart that was failing. Yet he found the courage to save a woman everyone else had given up on. What he discovered was that redemption doesn't come from wealth or success, but from the choice to love when it costs us everything. This story reminds us that family isn't always the people we're born to, but the ones we choose to stand beside when the world falls apart. Lucas thought he was saving Ayanna and those 14 children, but the truth is, they saved him right back. They gave him purpose when he'd lost all hope. They showed him that a life spent giving is worth far more than a life spent taking. We all carry regrets, losses that haunt us in the quiet moments. But, like Lucas, we can choose how our story ends. We can let grief consume us, or we can transform it into something beautiful by opening our hearts to those who need us most. Love doesn't erase the pain, but it makes the pain worth carrying. What loss in your life taught you the most about love? Have you ever found family in unexpected places? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.